Welcome back to Timelocked Iron Man. In this series, we explore the history of RuneScape, going through it patch by patch. There is a set of rules, but mostly I just stick to content as it was released, and I set myself a list of goals we need to complete before we move on. The focus of the show is the history and fun facts about this game, and a healthy dose of trivia and fun facts. Other than that, we just kinda go by vibes. Last episode we activated channel memberships, so massive shout out to Breen for supporting this channel. We've been away for a while, so thank you for your patience and let's get straight into it. I'm really excited to be back. 6th of April 2001. A massive update came to the game, which must have felt like an actual expansion to players back then. Before this, players ran into a fence when they went east of Barbarian Village. Examining this fence gave the text, "Coming soon, the Kingdom of Asgarnia." Little known fact about this is that Asgarnia was once intended to be the first pay-to-play zone. This was stated by Paul Gower in the BS podcast, though the episode seems to have been taken off YouTube, sadly. It is unclear to me at this time if it was intended as a one-time purchase thing or more something similar to today's membership. According to the interview, the Gowers changed their mind since they had not announced there ever being any paid content in the game, and they did not want to disappoint their player base. So let's look at everything that got added. First we have Falador. Falador is of course known as the White City. Today we know it as the center of military strength in Asgarnia, where the White Knights defend the people against the Black Knights looming far to the north. Here we can see a map of Falador's first version. Let's see what was already there. All the way south we can see the chainmail shop and the house with the spinning wheel. Those were already there. We can see the castle right above there. This also brought with it the first part in the White Knight storyline as the Spy Quest, which was later renamed to Black Knight's Fortress. West of the castle we can see the second bank ever to be added to the game, the Falador West Bank. Above that is the mace shop, which has been moved a bit in the current version of the game to make space for the barber shop. Both the barber shop and the gem shop were not in the game at this point. We can also see the pub, the furnace, the shield shop and the general store at the spots where we are familiar with them, as well as the park. There are two houses to the north, which aren't there anymore. Those are just houses containing a man and some furniture, and they did not serve any purpose after fatigue was gone, which is probably why they were removed in later updates. I should also note that there does not seem to be a wall to the west, but just a blue area. This was now the edge of the world map until membership was added and was likely just ocean at the time. To the east we can see the area that currently holds the rooftop agility course, the mahogany homes houses, the party room and the mining guild entrances. This area was originally intended as a place for player-owned houses, and at release it was fenced off and closed, much like the one in Varrock. The cluster of 6 houses has been there until the end of Classic, as well as the big castle north of them, but all of them were completely empty and never saw any real use. The castle was likely intended as a sort of a clan hall. That's most of Falador covered for now. It does give us a new place to play around in, but no real new goals or unlocks for now. The only upgrade available is the mithril square shield in the shield shop, but that has a standard stock of 0, so I cannot obtain one this way. Let's see what else was added. Ice Mountain was added to the game. In modern times it has been updated to hold some interesting content, but at its release it was just kind of a centerpiece between the Dwarven Mine and the Black Knight's Fortress, making the map feel a bit bigger and more interesting. Other than that, the mountain itself did not hold any actual content. The Edgeville Monastery was added, though it was not called that yet. Edgeville was still called Ghost Town, and the monastery was not really linked to it other than its proximity, so most people just called it the monastery. The monastery held monks that you could fight. They wear monk robes, but they do not drop them. They have the ability to heal you for a few hit points when you talk to them, as they still do today. I should note that only the bottom part of the monastery was added. The prayer guild upstairs was not in the game yet. It was mainly a good training spot since you could survive there without food. The Goblin village to the north was also added. This is about a month before Goblin Diplomacy was added as a quest, so it was nothing more than another Goblin training spot. I think lore-wise it makes sense. I mean, Asgarnia was made by Paul Gower, who was way more lore-focused than Andrew ever was. And having Goblins and Black Knights to the north and Barbarians to the east gave the White Knights of Falador a good reason to exist. Yet another threat to Falador's safety was the Chaos Temple located just north of the Goblin village. It contained evil monks of Samarak. Wine of Samarak was not in the game yet, so the only reason players would go there was to train on these monks. Their only drop other than bones was an iron mace. Directly attacking the monks or picking up an iron mace drop would result in them cursing you and thereby lowering your stats. If you simply talk to them though, they would become aggressive and fight you without cursing you. Interestingly, the iron mace drop was changed to a steel mace in a later patch. But this also broke the mechanic that would make the monks curse you upon picking it up. This was never fixed later on and players could pick up as many steel maces as they wanted to. So are you ready for some RuneScape pathfinding trivia? Back when the Chaos Temple and the Goblin Village were added on April 6, 2001, the layout of the world map looked a bit different. Nowadays players just go west of Ice Mountain to get to Doric's hut, the Goblin Village and the Chaos Temple. During Classic, reaching the Chaos Temple required you to take a right turn when leaving Falador, going up the slope towards Ice Mountain and then sticking to the left. There was no easy passage from the Goblin Village to the temple. Yet another game design trick to make the world feel bigger than it actually was. The Black Knight Castle was also added, of course. We'll get more into it when we do the actual quest, but for now just know it was released on this day. Port Sarim. Though the boats had nowhere to go, Port Sarim did also get added today, and along with it the best soundtrack that RuneScape has ever seen. Port Sarim was also part of the Devious Mud map, so it had been residing in Paul Gower's mind for a while, most likely. The update itself only talks about the food shop, the battle axe shop and the Asgarnian Ice Dungeon to the south, but it did have more to it than this. The magic rune shop was already there. Like the rune shop in Falador, it sold all the elemental runes as well as mind and body runes and both colors of wizard hats. It also contained the Eye of Newt, which was needed for the Witch's Potion quest. The battle axe shop was there, which was a big deal as it allowed players to purchase an adamant battle axe, which was the best weapon in the game at the time. At least until somebody got the smithing level to create an adamant two-handed sword. That also brings us to our first goal, purchase an adamant battle axe. The Rusty Anchor Inn was also added on this day, but it was just another pub out there and it did not feature much noteworthy content for now. Wyden's Grocery Shop was also added on this game. It was the only shop in the game, other than the kebab seller, that sold regular food. This was a great source at the time for players who wanted food to go fight other players. It did not yet contain the back room, which would only be added for Pirate's Treasure. Bananas were also added on this day thanks to the food store. It was the only way to obtain them at the time since Karamja had not been released yet. Rimmington. The village of Rimmington was a stealth release on this day. It was not mentioned in the patch notes, but it was definitely released today and is where we find the Witch's Potion quest. It also has a mine just to the north of it, which is conveniently close to Falador as well. Other than that, it just had a general store. We'll return here later on, but first we have another goal to set. The Asgarnia Ice Dungeon. Initially announced as the Ice Giants Dungeon. This place was a new high-level area containing level 68 Ice Giants, which to my understanding were the highest level monsters in the game at the time. They also dropped the Mithril Square Shield, which will be my new best-in-slot shield, so let's add it to the goals. Ice Warriors though were not yet in the game. The Dwarven Mine. The final addition is the Dwarven Mine, which is a more dangerous mining area than the one we visited so far. It contains every ore that was already in the game, as well as some anvils. It contained a mining store which sold a pickaxe, a hammer and some ores and bars, though their stock was standard at 0, so it was mainly intended for players to sell their ores and bars there. Most of the mine was relatively safe, as dwarves are not aggressive, but the higher level ores like mithril and adamant, those were guarded by scorpions, as well as the level 36 King Scorpion, which was a new addition to this patch. We have quite a few new quests added, so let's go over those before we dive into gameplay. Doric's quest was added, which is a story about a dwarf to the north of Falador requiring some ores before he will let us use his anvils. The spy quest, which was later renamed to Black Knight's Fortress, was also added on this day. Witch's Potion quest, which took us to Rimmington for the first time, was also added. And finally, the Sword quest, which was later renamed the Night Sword, took us into the Ice Giant Dungeon and made us travel to Mudskipper Point. But side note, Mudskipper Point was technically not named that yet, but you know the area. So now that we've gone over everything here, I should note that I diverted a little bit from my regular way of doing things. Up to now, I enter a patch and I complete the whole thing before moving on. But as you may know, this series has been dormant for a bit now. This was due to another project taking up more of my time, and for this reason I decided to include a few more patches into this part of the video, since it would allow me to do an AFK mobile grind and still progress the account while working on other stuff. So let's go over the coming few patches to show you what I mean. First, a few small ones. On the 13th of April, they added a small patch which allowed you to see how many people were online on a server, as well as which of the top players were playing and people in your friends list. On the 3rd of May 2001, we saw the release of RuneScape's first poll, and this would be an important one, as it went into the current PvP system. Andrew Gower knew that the open world PvP was not the greatest system and he proposed a new change. This would put all PvP into a dedicated zone called the Wilderness, a high risk and high reward area. He also proposed that the deeper into the wilderness you would go, the more dangerous it would become, and at the very highest edge you could fight just anyone. I'm sure we're all familiar with the wilderness, so I don't really have to explain what that means. He also proposed a dueling feature, which would allow players to stake rewards, set rules like is magic allowed, is food allowed, and both of these features did eventually make their way into the game later on. On the 5th of May, we saw an additional server being added. The game was a lot more popular than the Gowers had thought, and the current servers were often at max capacity. And on the 8th of May, we finally see the patch that we wanted to reach. Added both the Goblin Diplomacy quest and the crafting skill. Though a lot more restricted than the way we know it today, this did bring a lot of new content and items into the game. Crafting was already on the skill table from the start, though it did not really have any content. Are you ready for some crafting trivia? In the first episode of this series, we did the quest Sheep Shearer, which brought us to level 3 crafting. It was still pretty unclear to me if that experience would have already been obtained by someone actually doing the quest back then. The game did allow players to obtain experience in skills that weren't ready yet, like prayer at the start. So it would not be unheard of for Jagex to allow players to get crafting experience through a quest, despite the skill not being trainable after that. But I managed to find a screenshot that can confirm my suspicion. Here we can see a player with a crafting level of 2. Of course, this in and of itself proves nothing. But note that the player also has a maxed influence of 15. By the time the crafting skill got added, the highest possible influence one could have was level 19. So this does confirm that you could level up crafting through the Sheep Shearer quest. The quest does take you to level 3 crafting nowadays, but that's due to the quest experience distribution being different from today. We'll go more into that when we get to Doric's quest. So let's look at what we can make with crafting. The options were still very limited, of course, but we do have some interesting content. First we got the addition of pottery, though only through making pots and pie dishes. Leather crafting was not in the game yet. Gems were also added to the game. This means the 4 basic ones: sapphire, emerald, ruby and diamonds. All of these could be turned into rings, necklaces and amulets, though they could not be enchanted yet. Gold ores and bars were also added with this patch. Since we want to be able to enchant our ruby necklace into an amulet of strength later on, we will set a goal of 50 crafting for this episode. I will not grind up to a diamond amulet for now, since leveling it through gold is really slow, but I will do so when silver gets added. Other than that, crafting currently holds no relevant content to us. So besides crafting, we also have to do Goblin Diplomacy, and that's our list of goals for today. So what do I mean with the AFK skill earlier? I will be leveling up crafting by mining gold while I am still doing the grinds from the previous patch. I reckon this is okay, since this will not give me any advantages when it comes to killing ice giants or doing my quests. I do most of my gold grinds AFK, so in order for me to still be able to progress this account and get the videos out faster, I did break my rules a little bit and allowed myself to mine gold. So killing ice giants is not a thing that I do very often, and I accidentally visited the wrong part of the cave. I never really spent time in the western part of this dungeon on other accounts, but the eastern part was apparently not added during Classic. Or was it? So I only noticed this long after this grind, but I had a feeling that something wasn't right here. The room didn't really feel familiar to me. Let's take a look at the caves map during Classic. Now let's put it next to the one from OSRS. So we can see that the cave used in Classic was indeed to the west. But the map's design seems to have been flipped for RuneScape 2. So I was correct at first. Either way, the cave to the west only contains ice giants and no ice warriors, which is actually more correct for my timeline anyway, since the ice warriors were not released yet, and if I go there now I'm just gonna be attacked by ice warriors all the time, which I can't kill. So the cave to the west is a more logical solution anyway. Here I noticed I messed up again. Remember how in the first episode I said that there was only regular axes and pickaxes in the game at launch, both being comparable to their bronze counterparts? Yeah, apparently that only goes for pickaxes. Regular axes went all the way up to adamant. I only noticed because I got a steel axe drop and I hit the wiki button because I was bored and I noticed it was already at the game from the start. That's a bit embarrassing, but yeah. So I guess upgrading our axe further will be a future goal when we get to do some more smithing or woodcutting content. During this run I also got a black kite shield drop, which would be an upgrade, but they were not in the game until December of 2001, so I dropped it. Oh damn, I need a breather. Those ice giants, they hit like trucks.
Where are you going, you coward?
From launch? Shouldn't you be gallivanting around on member servers by now?
I had to take a break from that because I felt a distortion in the timeline, and now I see why.
Man, what are you talking about?
You ran away. There was no running in your timeline.
Yeah, I know, but I've seen you walk away from combat as well, which wasn't possible either. Besides, we're both Iron Men, which wasn't a thing back then as well.
Well, yeah, but at least I had the decency not to use a bank or run or do clues. I mean, what the hell, man?
Yeah, whatever, dude. I'm too fast to hear you. Try to keep up.
Hey, wait! Screw it. At least I can do this. Have fun going ever on foot, loser.
Okay, so I bought an adamant battle axe, which is a goal complete, and I went back to Ice Giant HQ. This frozen throne here has an examine text that is a reference to Game of Thrones. The fact that it's a frozen throne in and of itself might also be a World of Warcraft or Warcraft 3 reference. This area was not available during Classic, so neither was the throne. So it turns out that killing ice giants with a battle axe is less awesome than I anticipated. Their defense against stab weapons is a lot lower, so I will switch back to my sword after this run. Fourth run. I swear one day I will remember to take my sword. Got 47 hit points. Round 5, I got 2 clue scrolls, one that I can't do, but one that I can. Okay, just quickly doing the clue, and the lovely Veronica once again blesses us with a casket. And another trip. I got 48 hit points out of it, and I'm doing my 100th kill here. Back in Classic, they did not drop these plate legs. Instead, they dropped plate skirts. I also got a clue, but I can't talk to Gertrude yet, as she is not in the game. I did get 45 attack and 58 combat before I ran out of food here. And I got the shield. The RuneLite loot tracker says I'm at 119 KC. I did do one trip on mobile, so let's say that I got it around the drop rate. Now that that's done, let's look at our bank. I did make some changes to that. Eagle-eyed viewers may have noticed that I added a bank tab, something I initially said I would not do. I decided to allow myself just one of those for the simple reason that it gives me somewhere to put my items that are from a different timeline. For now that just means giant keys, clue caskets and the Oculus. I like to keep those separate and keep my main bank tab as pure as possible. I also don't make use of placeholders or anything, so I can't properly sort my bank. Placeholders are a luxury that was added way later on, so I'm not gonna be using those. Any items that you put back into your bank would just go into the last slot if there was not another stack of them already there. I tried to do a clue, but I had to drop it. Now it's time for our first quest of the episode, Doric's quest. This is one of the quests written by the player Rap, famously one of the most active community members back in the day. And still up to this day. I actually got into contact with him and he has been kind enough to share his knowledge with me, as well as some data and screenshots from back in the day. He told me that he and a few other players got to playtest new content close to release, which they did for the Falador update. Rab noted that Falador had no anvils above ground, the only one nearby being found in the Dwarven Mine. He pointed this out to Paul Gower, who told him that he expected players would do their mining and smithing in the mine, while walking back to Falador to smelt their ore, I suppose, since there's no furnace there. Back then there was only one entrance to the Dwarven Mine, the one near the mountain. The Falador entrance only got added later and that area was locked off anyway. Rap rightly pointed out that there are plenty of players who mine but don't smith, as well as the other way around. He suggested it might be a good idea to have an above-ground anvil. Paul agreed and he said that he would add one, but he wanted players to unlock it and earn that anvil. And he asked if Rap would mind to write a quest. Rap obliged and he wrote a short and simple quest in which we need to bring a dwarf some ore and he rewards us with the use of his conveniently placed anvil. I say that a bit sarcastically today since the Doric anvil is quite a walk from Falador, but back in Classic it was placed a whole lot closer to the city. Let's just compare. So a bit more trivia about Rap, but this was not the only time he affected how we smith in the game. Have you ever wondered why anvils and furnaces are always so far apart in this game? Yeah, in the logistical sense it makes zero sense. But this was also a Rap suggestion. Initially, Varrock held both a furnace and an anvil. Rap gave the suggestion to space those out a bit, which the Gower brothers agreed with. So if you've ever been pissed off when you're in a free-to-play server and you're walking from Varrock all the way to Lumbridge to smelt your ore, yeah, we have him to thank for that. But his greatest sin was something else. That came when he noticed that iron gave a huge increase in profit compared to bronze. And he suggested that maybe there should be about a 50% chance your ore could fail when smelting iron. Andrew Gower apparently took that seriously, and yeah, now we still have that system today. Although I swear it's more like 80%, man. I'm actually still trying to forgive him for that one. Some quest reward trivia. As we all know, quests that give XP rewards give a set value of XP. For example, Doric's quest gives you 1300 mining experience, which is enough to take you from level 1 to 10 mining. This was however not always the case. Back in the first iteration of this game, your experience reward was based on your level. Jagex decided to do away with this system during RuneScape 2. The 1300 XP we get today is the amount that a player with level 15 mining would have received during Classic. That's Doric's quest complete, and that's another goal done. Black Knight's Fortress. So this was originally named Spy Quest. I think like a few other quests, the name was changed later on to fit more with the lore and tone of the worlds. It was renamed shortly after the release though, somewhere in May of 2001. There's no clear date. This quest has a requirement of 12 quest points and is, to my knowledge, the first quest to have such a requirement. This was because the quest reward was 2500 GP, and that was a decent amount of money back then. Sir Amic Farce here, like many of his colleagues, has a punny name. If you say it with a British accent, his name sounds a bit like Ceramic Foss. When we talk to him, we have to tell him that we laugh in the face of danger, which is a line Simba spoke in The Lion King. He asks us to be his spy, to sneak into the fortress of the Black Knights to the north of Ice Mountain, to find out their secret weapon and destroy it. He gives us a dossier which self-destructs after we read it, which is another movie reference actually, this time to Mission Impossible. The dossier was not in the original version of the quest. Amic also uses the line, "Your mission, should you decide to accept it," which is another reference to the same movie. We need to make our way to the fortress with an iron chain body, a bronze met helm and a cabbage that does not come from Draenor. Remember the cabbage patch I talked about in a previous episode and how Draenor cabbages give a small stat boost? This was also to indicate that they are different from regular cabbages. After sneaking around the castle for a bit, we find a grill. If we listen here, we hear a conversation between a captain, a witch and a goblin. Back during Classic, the captain was just a regular Black Knight. Anyway, they are trying to make an invincibility potion that requires a Draenor cabbage to complete. If you try to drop a Draenor cabbage into the cauldron, your character says that he is not supposed to be helping the witch. Our sabotage is now complete, allowing us to return to Amic and collect our reward, which is 3 quest points and 2500 gold. Another interesting fact is that the quest used to give thieving experience. Thieving was in the skill tab but could not be trained. The only way to level it up was with this quest, which took players to level 3. And there's another goal complete. Time for Witch's Potion. This is a short and sweet quest. Hetty and Rimmington will teach us about the Dark Arts. This is in reference to the evil magic skill that was still in the game at this time. She wants us to bring her a rat's tail, a piece of bird meat, an eye of newt, and an onion. This might be a reference to Shakespeare's witches in Macbeth, who also mentioned stuff like eye of newt. But of course, adding disgusting items to a witch's potion is a very common thing in fables and folklore nowadays. All the items are nearby, you can kill a rat near the archery shop, you get burnt meat from a giant rat and overcooking or felling their meat. An eye of newt can be bought in Port Sarim, and an onion can be found near Melzer's Maze. When you give her the ingredients, you drink from the potion and that's quest complete. We get 325 magic XP, which is the equivalent of what someone with level 3 magic got during Classic. It seems the quest reward XP modifier is not the same for every quest, with more prestigious skills like magic getting a lesser experience reward, or maybe it's just cause this is a really easy quest. Goal complete. And now time for the Knight Sword/Sword quest. Sir Vyvan's squire tells us that he lost his master's sword, which was made by the now extinct race of Imkando dwarves. He says Reldo in Varrock may know more about him. We visit Reldo and he tells us that some Imkando dwarves may still be living in southern Asgarnia and about their love for red berry pies. We go to the southern peninsula and we find this handsome fella called Turgo, who is a lot more responsive after being given pie, just like your mom. He tells us he is willing to help, but he needs a picture of said sword. We go back to the squire, who says that there is a picture in Survivan's quarters, but we're pretty much on our own to get it. Talk about being ungrateful. Anyway, back during Classic, you required another player to distract Survivan while we steal the picture. These days, bringing a second player makes it a lot easier still, but you can just wait until he looks away, or you can just lock him outside of his room. We return to Turgo, who says he requires bluerite ore and iron bars to make the sword. Iron bars are easy to get, and bluerite ores can be found in the cave nearby. We bring him the items and he makes us a bluerite sword. Back in Classic, this was called the Faladian Knight's Sword, which is honestly a lot cooler of a name in my opinion, but it got changed. But I propose that we pressure Jagex into bringing back the word Faladian. Anyway, that pretty much finishes our quest. All that remains now is to turn it in to the squire and receive a ton of smithing XP. This quest introduced some interesting lore that only really got expanded upon almost 20 years later when Below Ice Mountain was released in OSRS. Both quests came out in April of their respective release years, though it should be said that in 2008 the Kamdozal Caves in Ice Mountain already opened for players in RuneScape 2, but this was after the copy of the game that would become OSRS was made. Knight's Sword trivia. The Knight Survivan? You can hear it, but it's a pun on surviving, just like all the Falador Knights. This is the only free-to-play quest that requires you to have a skill level above 1, requiring 10 mining. You can drop your sword after Turgo gives it to you. If you talk to him again after that, he will make you a second one if you bring him the supplies again, allowing you to keep one for yourself after turning it in. This is the only way to ever obtain the bluerite sword. Originally, crafting a second sword also required a second red berry pie, but this was changed. If you have only one sword on you and you have it equipped when turning in the quest, the squire will address this and ask you to unequip it. The smithing reward is equal to the experience that a player with 33 smithing would have received during Classic, making it the biggest experience reward in free-to-play until Dragon Slayer 1. Back in Classic, this sword had the same stats as Silverlight. Let's get right into the next quest, being Goblin Diplomacy. The goblins are at the brink of civil war over the color of their armors. We get sent to the Draenor Witch, who we already met in Prince Ali Rescue, and she can now offer us more colors of dye. We need to get some red berries, some onions and woad leaves. Woad leaves and Wyson the Gardener in Falador were also added to the game for this quest. Anyway, when we have our dye and 3 pieces of goblin armor, we can return to the village. We let the goblins try out orange armor and blue armor, which they both don't really like. After all that, we give them plain brown armor, just the regular one that drops from goblins, and they are pleased with that, which ends our quest, which is another goal complete. Goblin Diplomacy Trivia. This quest added more dyes into the game, specifically the red, blue and orange ones. Though dyeing capes would not become a thing until December of 2001. Up until 2006, you had to start this quest from the bartender in Port Sarim rather than the goblin generals themselves. Today, if you talk to him without having the quest completed, he still talks about the rumor that the goblins are having discussions about their armor, and that he fears it might lead to war. The player character tells him that they will check it out. The 200 crafting experience that a player receives in OSRS is the same amount of experience a player with level 5 crafting would have received in RuneScape Classic. Okay, now that that's all done, it's time to go back to crafting. So for the first part of my crafting grind, I just took to the Rimmington Mine. This was maybe not my smartest idea since it's a longer walk than the one in Alcarit, but I do like to change up my scenery now and again. I was pretty dumb about it though, since I pretty much just banked all my gold amulets rather than sell them in a general store. In between I also did some clues. Here I got a Doric step, he sends us to Charlie the Tramp. I'm not doing Charlie steps until I have fishing unlocked, so I dropped it and I did clue number 2. This gave us a casket. Our third clue took us to the Varrock East Mine and then the Lumbridge Cook, and he was kind enough to give us another casket. Okay, back to mining. Okay, so I decided to quit the Rimmington Mine for now and go to Alcarit, which is a bit closer to a furnace and to a general store, I think, so I'm gonna make use of that. Mining gold with a bronze pickaxe is not something that I would ever recommend that anybody does, but I gotta say now that I'm level 60 mining, it's pretty okay, it's a bit faster. Oh, the irony of reaching level 61, being able to wield the dragon pickaxe, but still being stuck with the bronze one. Okay, we're in the home stretch to 50 crafting. I made around 180k GP already, and I got about 3.3k experience to go, which is about 112 more amulets. At 62 mining, the gold is mined faster usually, but it can still take over a minute from time to time. We're at the finish line. I decided to go back where we started, the Rimmington Mine, to finish it up. And there we go, 50 crafting. Here you can see the cash tag and the remaining gold to sell, and that's a ruby amulet made. With our ruby amulet in the pocket, we are now ready to create a strength amulet when the magic update releases, which is an exciting prospect. At the time they got released, these amulets were purely cosmetic and could be sold for some cash in the gold exchange in Port Sarim. Our plans are way beyond that, of course. So that's our final goal complete. But before we finish this episode, we have one thing left to do. Something attentive viewers might have noticed. Remember in the last episode how the Champions Guild released? Well, we now have the quest points required to go inside of there. We can of course not start our Dragon Slayer quest yet, but it does offer us some nice new best in slot armor. So we're buying ourselves a nice Addy plate body and a blue cape. The rune items and the green D-hide were sadly not in the game yet. According to the RuneScape Classic wiki, the vendor Verlaine here only sold the blue cape and the black full helm. The black plate legs were added in the Prince Ali rescue patch, which was after the release of the Champions Guild, and the adamant plate body got added on the same day as crafting did. Verlaine is an armor store, but she functions like a general store because you can sell any item to her. And that's our secret goal complete. We got ourselves an adamant plate body and a blue cape. Interestingly, the adamant plate body now costs 21k, but at its release in the shop, the price was 40k. This was probably changed somewhere around the end of 2001. We now have our blue cape, which has no different stats from our red one, but it was a status symbol back in Classic, and we will be wearing it for the foreseeable future. And there we have it, folks. That's another episode of the Timelocked Iron Man finished. I hope you all liked it. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, I ask that you please subscribe, leave a like on the video, leave a comment. Whatever you want to do, whatever you can do to support, it would mean the world to me. I know that the channel has felt pretty dead over the last few months after my first 3 videos, but I will try to be a bit more consistent with my videos, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye!